All right, time for some 49ers news on this beautiful Friday before I head down to Levi's Stadium. Obviously, I'm going to continue pumping out content from down there. So we could start with what I'll be watching today at practice. Talked about Nick Bosa about an hour ago. He might not even be out there, although today's the light session, so maybe he will participate. But even if he's not out there, he is still trending toward playing on Sunday. Suffered a hip pointer last week and made the mistake of trying to practice through it. And that meant that he didn't get the rest he needed to improve. So he was really fighting through some pain during the game on Sunday in Tampa. This week, Bosa taking the opposite approach, and John Lynch recently said on KMBR that he thinks that that is allowing Bosa to trend in the correct direction. Remember, Bosa consistently dominates Seattle. Last month, he had 14 pressures in a game against the Seattle Seahawks, who just typically don't have good offensive tackle play. And that sets up really, really nicely for Nick Bosa. He is a game changer, and it looks like San Francisco is going to have their defensive end available on Sunday. Maybe a little bit more drama with Trent Williams, although even though he's missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday, we saw him on the field at the start of practice yesterday. He wasn't participating. He was just walking off the field into the weight room. And that tells me that he's not in the treatment room all day, which is a decent sign for his availability. The 49ers hold walkthroughs before practice. So I think that he probably was at the walkthrough. I can't confirm that, but I did see him walking off the field when the media was let in, and he was going to the weight room, not the treatment room. So Trent Williams, I would say that's also trending in the right direction for the 49ers, but you can't speak for certain. We'll see if we see him out at practice today. It's an ankle and a wrist issue for Trent. So two things that he's been on the injury report with. Lynch did say that Yetur Gross-Matos is trending toward being activated. So that's going to help the 49ers in at least one of the trenches. He's been on injured reserve with a knee injury. We'll see if Kevin Givens gets out there. But once the ship has sailed on Wednesday and Thursday for some of these non-superstar players, it's much less likely that they're going to suit up and play than it is likely that they're going to suit up and play. So probably we have to wait until next week for Kevin Givens as the 49ers suit up for their trip to Green Bay. So those are the injuries that we're watching today at 49ers practice. Obviously, Juwan Jennings as well. I just don't have any more information on that right now. I will in a couple of hours because he was listed as a new entry to the injury report yesterday with an ankle. But we don't know exactly what happened. We don't know if it's just a minor little flare-up of something that started bothering him in practice. That was after Thursday's session for Juwan Jennings. So let's sit back and not make any judgments, not make any premature declarations on that front. We'll find out when I do head to the 49ers facility in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about Deommodore Lenoir's contract. Have the actual numbers ready for you today. So this is always an exciting day for those of you who are big contract nerds. There they are. This is up on Over the Cap. This is how it looks. Did Lenoir take a hometown discount? You could probably argue that he did. I mean, there's only $15.4 million in fully guaranteed money on this contract, which is significantly lower than a lot of people expected. That being said, the timing of the contract here, when Lenoir signed it, does indicate that he wanted to get this done, probably as a stress reliever. 49ers are happy that this got done sooner rather than later as well, because what you look at here is an opportunity for Deommodore Lenoir to make a whole bunch of money. The 49ers were able to keep his cap hit low in the first 2 years. 4.8 million, 5.9 million in 2024 and 2025. And then the bulk of the cap damage is coming later in 2026 through 2029. So he's under contract through his age 30 season. But what has happened here is the 49ers have been able to make the bulk of the money come in during years that are not guaranteed for Deommodore Lenoir. So they can essentially decide in 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029 if they're going to re-up this deal. And they have several options. They can also convert the base salary, all but the league minimum in those years, to a signing bonus and prorate that into the future to restructure Diamond Lenoir's deal and open up some of the cap space. So you keep the cap hit low over the first 2 years, and then where it's high, you still have flexibility because this is non-guaranteed base salary to make cap adjustments to play financial Tetris in the future. The numbers in 2026 to 2029 are not all that important. What is important is that the 49ers have team control, which should give them leverage in any potential negotiations moving forward. If Diamond Lenoir continues playing at the very high level that he's playing at, well, the 49ers will happily keep him on the team, but they can rework the deal so that the base salary comes in signing bonus instead, and it's prorated against the cap so they could lower the cap number of these years. So the 49ers have earned contractual control. They have earned flexibility, which is exactly what they wanted. That's what they offered Diamond Lenoir here. They had it, I think, something similar offered since training camp. The Diamond Lenoir has now decided to come to the table, probably with a few concessions from the 49ers, and sign it before this next offseason when he was scheduled to be a free agent. On the trajectory that Diamond Lenoir is on, I think it's almost certain that he could have gotten himself more fully guaranteed money, maybe even a higher APY than the $17.8 million that this deal is at, if he had waited until free agency. But there are trade-offs in life. And Diamond Lenoir saw the Brandon Ayuk situation. He even saw the Nick Bosa situation over the past 2 years. There was a lot of stress involved. And especially in the case of Brandon Ayuk, he was not in form at the beginning of the 2024 season after the stress of that contract negotiation. Obviously, he didn't participate in practice at training camp. And I think that the 49ers wanted to avoid that outcome. And I think that Diamond Lenoir, the proof is in the pudding here, he wanted to avoid that outcome as well. He said, hey, I want to be here for the team. I want to put this behind me. Lenoir was real with us the other day. He said, my family's from LA. This is the spot for me. I'm close to family and friends. I want to play my entire career with the 49ers. He didn't find a compelling reason to play some prolonged game of hardball with the 49ers that ultimately would hurt his performance in the 2025 season, or could threaten to hurt his performance in the 2025 season. He wanted the guaranteed money now, so he gets a $13 million signing bonus now. That's almost all of the $15.4 million of guaranteed money, including the rest of his base salary this year. So essentially everything that's fully guaranteed, all but $2 million, which comes next year, is coming to Diamond Lenoir now. So he gets the money up front. That's obviously life-changing money, right? $13 million in a signing bonus. It's not as massive as a $30 or $40 million signing bonus. And, maybe he could have eked out a $20, $25 million signing bonus when the time came in free agency next year. But instead, he gets it now, which allows him to breathe easier. And also, he stands to make a whole heck of a lot of money in the future. A big $6.5 million option bonus kicks in next year, which the 49ers will almost certainly pick up. So it is an effective guarantee, practical guarantee, if you want to call it that. And then it's a bet on himself, right? In 2026 to 2029, Diamond Lenoir has big money coming if he continues to play at the high level. And I think that we can all agree that Lenoir is an ascending player. I mean, just look at the trajectory from the struggles in 2021 and 2022 to how he turned it up in the playoffs of 2022 against Geno Smith, who he faces this week. Big interception toward the end of that playoff wildcard win against the Seattle Seahawks. Another interception the next week against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys in the divisional round. A lights-out game in the NFC title against Philadelphia. That turned it around for Diamond Lenoir and put him on the path of what became this contract. 2023 was a really good year. 2024, he's been even better. So congratulations to him. And the 49ers got what they needed out of this too, and that is full flexibility in years 2026 and 2029. And with the cap continuing to grow, if Diamond Lenoir in his prime, right, his physical prime should theoretically come from 27 to 29, he's going to earn this money. He could even sit back and say, hey, sweeten the pot a bit if he truly becomes a superstar over the next couple years. And Lenoir's always been a scrappy guy, a guy that's been willing to bet on himself. And he definitely has that opportunity now. Just another one in a long line of 49ers fifth-round draft picks that have panned out for this football team. So I look at this as a deal that both sides walk away getting what they wanted. The 49ers obviously got the cap flexibility, and Diamado Lenoir gets the money now. There's a reason why a lot of deals are not completed at this time of the year, because the player is going to have to take what is technically a little bit of a discount. But for Diamado Lenoir, who really wanted to stay with the 49ers, wanted to stay close to home in LA, it does make sense that he took this kind of money right now. If you have any questions, drop them into the chat section. I'll be happy to answer them. But first, I want to talk about the 49ers YAC rebirth. So they still rank last in the NFL in YAC, which is crazy because they were first over the past several seasons. But this chart shows that this might be turning around for San Francisco. Look at the upper right here. Red is bad, green is good. So this is the 49ers YAC performance in 2024. Percentage of yards that come after the catch in each game. The Jets, the Vikings, the Rams, and the Patriots game, all in the red. The Cardinals game in the yellow, so still not great. Finally, they approached a better number the first time they played the Seahawks. It dipped back down when they played the Kansas City Chiefs, but improvement against the Cowboys, and the Tampa Bay game was also a solid number for the 49ers. So in general, you see more green than red lately after some dark red early on. And I think that the return of Christian McCaffrey, they had 179 YAC yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think the return of Christian McCaffrey is really, really important. That was the most YAC yards the 49ers have had all season. What happens there is that Brock Purdy simply has a more trusted check down underneath option. And that generally, McCaffrey will catch longer passes too. But the ability to be that trusted security blanket on shorter passes, which turn into yards after the catch because of his elusiveness, changes the focal point of how the 49ers offense works. It opens up more YAC stuff for Deebo Samuel. It opens up more YAC stuff for George Kittle. It opens up more YAC stuff for Jawan Jennings. It's just a good thing all around. Brock Purdy has proven that he can win in essentially any fashion. I have another really good graphic here for you that I tweeted a little bit ago. I'll go ahead and dig it up. This is SF Data 49ers does great stuff with all these visualizations. You can follow them online. But this is average depth of target on the x-axis and completion percentage above expectation on the y-axis. So this is really a stylistic chart, especially the x-axis. The further to the right you are, the longer your average throw is. And you could see that Brock Purdy is way, way over on the right side for the 49ers because his average throw has been really long. So he's proven, based on his positioning here in the upper right, he has proven that he can win with the long game. And that's what the 49ers have been doing. That's why the YAC this year, early on, has been a little bit lower because Purdy has been throwing the football further down the field. But now that he's proven that he could win with the long game, we are seeing the rebirth of the YAC game. And I think the 49ers offense is going to be in a much more sustainable spot there. Because let's be honest, when defenses are dialing up intense pressure, big blitzes against San Francisco, you don't have time for those receivers to get open on some of the longer throws. You're going to have the quicker outlet to beat that pressure. And that was missing for San Francisco. And we put a lot of blame on Kyle Shanahan for that. I think JT O'Sullivan in his film review still blames Kyle Shanahan for that. He says, these answers to these pressures are not easy enough for Brock Purdy, although Purdy is good enough to still make it work. He pointed to a throw to Deebo Samuel in the last game against Tampa Bay as a good example. Purdy was throwing with anticipation to Samuel. It was a short pass, but he still had to put the ball perfectly in a spot where Deebo Samuel would run even before Deebo Samuel made the break as the pressure was coming. I mean, Purdy is doing some MVP caliber stuff this year, even on the shorter throws, which I think people need to realize. Sometimes it's harder to execute the short game than it is the long game due to the anticipation that you have to throw with, due to the pressure that you have to beat, because the short game is often coming when the pressure is most intense. So Purdy's getting that done, but JT O'Sullivan, the former 49ers quarterback who runs the QB school, great channel on YouTube, also posts a lot on Twitter. He is arguing that Kyle Shanahan needs to do a better job of setting Brock Purdy up. But I think that in general, the setup has gotten easier. And I think that we can look at the YAC numbers and we can see the trend into the green as something that really helps the 49ers. I mean, look at last season and look at 2022. It's funny because they started each of the last 3 seasons in a bad spot when it came to YAC. I know Trey Lance was the quarterback in that 2022 game against the Bears, but Purdy had a good game against the Steelers last year, but they still didn't get the YAC going quite the way that they wanted to. And then they really grew into it over the course of the season. It looks like if this continues, this trend continues in 2024, and we see a whole lot more green round things out all the way into the very end, it looks like the same trajectory has been followed as we saw in 2022 and 2023, but the 49ers just took longer to get going. And that could be because Christian McCaffrey was out. I think that would be the most logical explanation for why it took longer to jumpstart the engine here in 2024. But still, cool stuff as we check out 49ers news on this Friday morning. Why don't we go to a 49ers Q&A? Happy to answer some of your questions. We can go through whatever you want. You know, the Bosa news video I posted earlier featured the burrito from last night. Those of you who are always curious about what food spots we highlight, it was El Castillo Taqueria on Church and the Bose. I think it is the most underrated al pastor burrito in the city. If you want carne asada, probably the best place to go is La Taqueria. That one's really touristy, though, over at 25th and Mission. Nothing wrong with that. This means they're popular with out-of-towners, so you're going to have more lines there. If you want chicken, the super burrito, and they also have good carne asada, but if you want the best chicken super burrito, Taqueria Cancun. And then I went to El Castillo. That's where you go get the al pastor. All right, waiting for some of these questions to trickle in. Let's go. What is my prediction for Brock's contract? Do you think he will get Dak money at 60? I mean, he deserves more than Dak money. Brock Purdy is better than Dak Prescott. Each of these contracts has usurped the high water mark before it. Prescott's at the high water mark at 60 million. If Purdy continues producing at the level that he's producing at as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, then you give him the high water mark, because I don't see anybody else signing before Purdy to eclipse the 60 million. The market is the market. It's as simple as that. I think the arguments over this are overcomplicating matters. Purdy is really damn good, period. And all it takes is to be a good quarterback to set the quarterback market when your time is up. Daniel says that he wouldn't be surprised if Purdy got 65 million plus. There you go. You could argue that Dak is overpaid, but that's just, again, this is the market. That's how it works. If you're a good quarterback, which I think Dak is, I don't think he's a great quarterback, but if you're a good quarterback, you set the market. The position is that important, and the market inflation works in such a way. What do the 49ers do with Greenlaw after this year since he's a free agent? Well, why don't we wait to see if Dre Greenlaw comes back and see what he looks like coming back this year? There's no reason for the 49ers to make a move on Dre Greenlaw early right now. They need to see how he's going to look on the field coming off of the Achilles injury. Some of this stuff is going to work itself out. Trust me. You have to sit back and get all the data, analyze everything. And we don't have enough data to evaluate what the 49ers might or should do with Dre Greenlaw at this point. Are the 49ers, this is another question about Dre Greenlaw. Seems like they could get a big discount now. Maybe they can, but why? I mean, why would you execute anything right now when the guy hasn't played a single down coming off an Achilles injury? Like, that's a discount, but it'd also be a risk. So again, pump the brakes, wait to see what happens. And the 40, and maybe Dre Greenlaw would rather bet on himself and come back and put some good football on tape to try to get some more money. So some of these things, I think we just have to wait and see. How will the defense slow down Geno Smith on Sunday? The same way that they seem to have slowed down Geno Smith every single time they faced him. Good pass rush, beat the Seattle tackles. Both had 14 pressures last month. And remember how good the coverage was when the 49ers played the Seahawks in October? Renardo Green had the interception to effectively seal the game. Malik Mustafa, the big pick early on. Those were all huge plays. But that was the 49ers rookie showcase up in Seattle. So just do more of the same and you'll be all right if you're the 49ers. Mason done for the season? What are you talking about? He's not done for the season. He was in the last game and he didn't get hurt. Jordan Mason is good. Christian McCaffrey is back, though. That's the big news for the 49ers. If special teams continues to not improve, could we potentially see any changes? Well, they're trying to make changes like with just personnel. They're trying to make sure they get the most experienced, best guys in there. They've had some injuries. I think you're asking about coaching changes. I highly doubt they would make a coaching change midstream. I do think that a lot of this is the shuffle of personnel, but so much of it is also an overarching special teams philosophy that actually goes all the way up to the head coach. It's not just Brian Schneider has coordinated really good special teams units in Seattle. The 49ers, whenever you hear Kyle Shanahan talk about this, he just wants his special teams to not be terrible. I don't think he's ever talked about, emphasizing special teams being great. I think there are pluses and minuses to that strategy. I do think that the 49ers put a whole lot more resources into offense and defense, which is why they're top 5 offense and defense by DVOA. But I do think that strategy is reliant on the special teams, in fact, not being terrible. And so far this year, it's ranked number 31 or number 32, depending on which metric you look at. That unfortunately has registered as terrible. Now, the good news is that they haven't been terrible every single game. They've actually had 3 solid games this year. So there's more variance on special teams and more ability to get it up to the mediocrity that the 49ers need it to be at to not screw up what the offense and defense is doing. You can hope, if you're a 49ers fan, that the terrible performances, especially the one last week that led to physical altercation on the sideline between Deebo Samuel and Tabor Pepper, you can hope that was a wake-up call for this team culturally that, okay, we got to make sure the special teams is at least mediocre. It shouldn't be that hard to push it up to mediocrity. So let's see if that Deebo Samuel shove was indeed a wake-up call for the 49ers. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp has been a friend of the program here for about a month this season. And I want to take a moment, and I did yesterday. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take a moment to say thank you to Mike, who helps this show run. Mike does such a good job behind the scenes. So everybody give Mike a round of applause in the comment section, because this month is all about gratitude. And along with Mike, who I just shouted out, there's another person we don't get to thank enough: ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including Mike and including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Lombardi Lounge today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lombardi Lounge. Round of applause for Mike. And you can go ahead and sign up for BetterHelp. More questions. We're ready. Will we find out today if Juwan Jennings plays on Sunday, or is it a game time decision? Well, we don't know exactly what the issue with Juwan Jennings' ankle is. So we're going to find some new information, I would think, in about an hour and a half to see if he's on the practice field. Then Kyle Shanahan will speak and he'll give us a firm answer to your question. Few more questions, and then I have to head down to Santa Clara. Will Gross Matos be in the starting defensive lineup? I don't think he'll be in the starting defensive lineup, but he'll be in the D-line rotation, and he certainly improves that rotation. The two starting defensive ends are Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd. Gross Matos, I would say, is the third defensive end. That really helps that position, right? You've got Sam Okawanu and Yetur Gross Matos on your Bravo unit, Bosa and Floyd on the Alpha unit. And then, if you need another defensive end up for the game, Robert Beal is available. He's kind of your fifth guy, right, in this case. But it does certainly improve the top four that the 49ers are working with. All right, great questions. I got to head down to Santa Clara. Everybody, thanks for watching. We will talk to you soon.